history is rooted in what we may call divine revelation. This revelation is recorded in the Old Testament. Despite this shared history, Jews and Christians have not always been best of friends. In the Middle Ages, the common refrain among Christians was that the Jews killed the Messiah, Jesus. This led to a culture of anti Semitism in most of Europe, where the Jews had been dispersed too. In other places, the Jews were killed and persecuted. But no matter what people do to these ancient people, their numbers never decrease and they continue to prosper anywhere you find them. Our broadcast today must begin with an ancient story, a story that occurred many years ago in Persia, the land that we call Iran today. Once upon a time, there was a king called Xerxes. He reigned between 486 to 465 BC. The name the Bible records him as is Ahasuerus, and his story is recorded in the book of Esther. During the reign of this king, many Jews lived in his kingdom because at that time in the Jewish national life, God had dispersed the Jews into the nations because of their sins. Xerxes had domestic issues and divorced his wife. In her place, he married a woman called Esther. A senior, a senior assistant of Xerxes was a man called Haman, who decided to destroy all the Jews. Thankfully, Esther, a Jew, prevailed on the king to nullify the wicked plans of Haman. Haman was killed, and all the enemies of the Jews were also destroyed. That incident is celebrated by Jews all around the world in what is called the Feast of Purim. This year, 2026, the Feast of Purim occurred on the 2nd and the 3rd of March. 3 days before the celebration of the Feast of Purim began, Israel and the United States of America commenced a war against Iran. On the first day of that war, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and 40 of his senior officials were eliminated by airstrikes from the United States of America and Israeli forces. What Khamenei and Haman of the Bible had in common was a hatred of the Jews and a desire to destroy them. Instead, just as it happened with Purim in ancient Persia, the Jews have turned on their enemies and have destroyed them instead. Today, on Text and Publishing Religion, we shall be discussing what is the ideological root of the Ayatollah's hatred for the Jews, why the war on Iran is necessary, and how does it apply to Nigeria as a people. Our guest today to discuss this very important topic is Mr. Brother Korede Olawoyin. I'm going to bring him up in a moment, so just give me 1 minute. Mr. Korede, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be our guest today on Text and Publishing Religion. We really appreciate your being here. God bless you. Thank you so very much. Mr. Korede deserves a proper introduction. So before he speaks, I'm going to I'm trying to get my opportunity. I can't get it. I'll have it sorted out. So I'm going to introduce our brother very properly by by explaining to us or reading out his profile. Korede Olawoyin is a graphic artist, web developer, and a Christian apologist. Korede has been engaging Muslims for more than a decade. He has moderated and has been involved in dialogue with Muslims through the platform of Love a Muslim Ministry. Korede has been invited to speak in seminaries, churches, special group trainings. He also takes part as a facilitator at a yearly specialized Muslim evangelism training, Lay Institute, in one of the prestigious seminaries in Nigeria, West Africa. That is the West African Theological Seminary, WAT. Korede has successfully used information technology to advance the cause of the gospel. One of such examples is his YouTube channel, called Seasoned Apologists. Please go there and subscribe to that channel. A channel that is dedicated to equipping the Christian on their faith and helping them to teach the same to others through the videos of seasoned apologists in the field. This channel, that's Korede's channel, attracts people from all around the world with its highest subscribers from the United States of America. Korede organizes a yearly apologetics conference, the Seasoned Apologist Conference. I think the next one is coming up in a few weeks. A conference dedicated to helping Christians understand their faith and defending the same against the attacks of skeptics and Muslims. Korede runs a website called www.seasonedapologist.com, a site that is dedicated to answering the questions of Muslims and critiquing Islam in general. He is the CEO of Niger Gospel Radio, an online Christian radio dedicated to spreading the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ through digital means. He also manages a consulting firm, especially for churches, known as iChurch Resources, a firm focused on helping churches and ministers maximize the social media tool for the benefit and expansion of their God-given ministry. Korede has written about 2 books, namely one, Allah Paradise, and the second one, How to Minister to Muslim through Facebook. He currently has 2 more manuscripts waiting for publication. Korede loves reading and playing games occasionally. He also enjoys visiting the cinema. He's happily married to Benedicta, and they live in Lagos. Thank you, Brother Korede, for being our guest on it used to be Reformed Nigeria Television, but it's now Text and Publishing Religion. Thank you very much for being our guest today.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much, Brother Deji Yusufu, for actually having me on this program. I'm so glad to be here. I think it's over a year ago I've been here, and I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Yes. So, Brother Korede is going to be talking to us about Islam generally, but let me introduce myself. My name is Deji Yusufu. I'm the pastor of Providence Reformed Baptist Church, Ibadan. Providence Reformed Baptist Church meet at the University of Ibadan. If you wish to know more about our local assembly, please send us an email at nigeriareformed@gmail.com. I'll still be speaking more about that later on. I want to thank our brother for joining us, and I'm going to pull up his slide. He's going to give us a 15 to 20 minutes discussion or summary on a basic question that I sent him. And that question borders on something that happened to me recently. On one of our channels, Text and Publishing History, we did a broadcast, or we did a show or a video on Ahmadu Bello, Ahmadu Bello, the famous northern politician. And basically we're saying in that video, we're talking about how he affected the North and how he brought a lot of development. But one of his major problems was dealing with the issue of militant Islam, because a lot of Muslims in the North did not subscribe to his kind of politics, because he successfully reconciled, Islam with Western values, and he played down on the violence and all of that. So, Mr. Korede, the question really that I want to ask is just simple. How does and why does a commitment to the reading of the Quran lead almost inevitably to militancy? Why is it that, people who are committed to the Quran, who read the Quran, eventually almost immediately become militants? Why is that? So our brother is going to be answering with in the next few minutes. Thank you very much for coming, sir.
All right. Thank you again for having me here, Brother G. Yusufu, for the opportunity to be able to engage with the audience of Reform Nigeria TV, and also to discuss this very sensitive subject at this particular point in time. Now, looking at the question that you have asked, why does it seem that if a Muslim is looking at the Quran and he wants to be committed to what is reading in the Quran, almost immediately he becomes radicalized? Why is that? Is there something in the text of the Quran, or is there something about Islam that once you want to become a fundamentalist, you want to begin to take your religion very seriously, then suddenly it seems you change change from just being a nominal Muslim to the one that wants Islam to dominate the world? Now, my answer to that is basically found on the screen right here. It is because of these two sources. The first one is the Quran, and the second one is the Hadith. Now, before I begin to unpack what these books, I mean, these sources are, what I'm going to do is to try and define what these two sources are, so that those who are not familiar with these sources will have a glimpse, an idea of what this stands for, and then we can walk through a couple of things from these sources as the case may be. So I'm just going to be going through my slide right here. Let's start with the Quran. What is the Quran? Now, I know that if you are a non-Muslim and you've seen the Quran, you've read the Quran, or probably you've just seen a Muslim reading the Quran, what will come to your mind? And I've seen some, non-Muslims say this. They say that the Quran is the Bible of the Muslim. All right. So that means just as the Christians have their own Bible, so the Quran is the Bible of the Muslims. I can understand why they are saying that, because they are trying to equate the fact that Christians have a holy book that they are entrusted their life to, they are following, and then the Muslims have the very same thing. So they use the term the Bible of the Muslim. But what do the Muslims themselves believe the Quran to be? Of course, I'm not going to be doing an exhaustive, lecture on the Quran itself. I just want to give us a sort of understanding that the Muslim have, excuse me, when we are talking about the Quran. So what is the Quran? The Quran is the central religious text of Islam. All right. This is the text that the Muslims believe had been revealed. Okay. Of course, through the Prophet of Islam. But let me just read what is on the screen. It's believed by the Muslim to be the literal word of God. What does that mean? It means that every word in the Quran, right from the beginning of the chapter of the Quran, okay, the first chapter to the last chapter, everything is said by God. No human being actually said anything. There is no human influence. Everything that you have there, it is word for word spoken by God. And that's the reason why you're seeing right there on the screen that the Quran is the literal word of God. However, it was revealed through Prophet Muhammad. So the Muslims actually believe that there are prophet that comes before Muhammad. They believe that Moses, Adam, they believe that John the Baptist, all these are prophets that actually came before Muhammad. In fact, Jesus is also considered to be a prophet in Islam. However, Muhammad is the last prophet, okay? And that's the reason why some Muslims will refer to the Quran as the final testament, meaning apart from the Old and the New Testament, the final testament is the Quran. Then moving on from there, the Quran, the meaning of that word, okay, it's actually connotes what you understand or what you think as a recitation. That's the meaning of the word, okay? Quran. It means recitation. It's composed of about 114 chapters. Of course, like I said, it's not an exhaustive nature or lecture on the Quran, because this particular submission right here is also debatable. Because if you're looking at the history of the Quran, especially if you're looking at the early days of Islam, how the Quran was compiled, there are actually different opinions concerning this issue. Okay, but as it is today, all right, as the Quran stands today, is 114 chapters. Okay, but again, if we look into the history of the Quran, we're going to see a situation where we have 112 chapters, 116 chapters, but this is the one that we are looking at today. So again, we're not looking at the history of the text of the Quran, so I'm not going to be going into that discussion. But then we have what is known as the surah. The surah is actually the chapter. If you are a non-Muslim, think of it like this. So in the Bible, you have the book of Matthew, all right? And then you have Matthew chapter 1, Matthew chapter 2. So see surah that way, all right? So you have the surahs that have different name. The first surah is Surah Al-Fatiha. The second one is Surah Al-Baqarah. And then the third one is Surah Al-Imran. The fourth one is Surah Al-Nisa. You have all of these chapters with their names, all right? So just see it as a chapter, all right? Or the name of a particular book in the Quran. And then it has multiple verses. These verses are known in the Arabic as ayah. And it's considered by Muslims to be a complete guide for life. So if you see a Muslim who is actually serious with Islam, he believes that the Quran is a code for him, a guide, okay, for life for him, because this is what he lives by. Okay, this is what he's actually getting, the guidance from Allah and every other thing that he needs to do. This is where he's coming from. Okay, so that's why it's a code for life for him. Of course, for covering spiritual, moral, social, legal, and I mean every other aspect of life. Okay, so if you're seeing the Muslim and is taking the Quran seriously, the Muslim is not just seeing the Quran as a book that he wants to read or a book that he put under his pillow. By the way, they don't even do that. I know some Christians actually do that. Do put the Bible under the pillow and they sleep on it as a form of protection, whatever that means. The Quran is not like that to a Muslim. The Quran is a complete code of life. And if I say complete code of life, we're saying that the Quran cover aspects such as legal, marital, spiritual, work, every aspect, ethics, every aspect of life is what the Quran covers for a Muslim. All right. So he's seeing it as something important. That's why you should understand that a Muslim that is taking the Quran seriously is seeing this as a manual for daily life, everything that it does, right from rising in the morning till sleeping, by the end of the day. So this is actually what it sees as his guidance for life. And the Muslims actually believe that this Quran was actually revealed to Muhammad orally within the period of 23 years. Okay, some will say 22, 22, 23 years through Angel Gabriel. They call him Jibril in Arabic. So they believe that it was given to, Muhammad piecemeal. All right. Muhammad will come to, Angel Gabriel will actually come to Muhammad, on a particular day, reveal a portion to him, come tomorrow, another portion. So this was done within the space of 23 years. And then, of course, when Muhammad was actually at the age of, 40, before he actually became 40, Muhammad actually married Khadija. Khadija is, the first wife of Muhammad. She's such a very influential woman, very rich woman, and very powerful woman. And when Muhammad actually married Khadija, even though some would say Khadija is the one that actually married Muhammad, at the age of 40, Muhammad received the divine revelation, all right? The very first revelation, which is actually of the Quran. And that is the reason why the Eid that the Muslims are celebrating, or the one they just celebrated a couple of days ago, is usually remembered because the Muslims claim that the Quran was actually revealed during the period of Ramadan. And that's why the last few days to the end of Ramadan, the Muslims will observe, what is known as the Laylatul Qadr. It is called the night of power. Why? Because this night, according to the Muslims, the belief is such a potent night, such a very powerful night, that this is the night that Allah, usually answers, for the most part, the prayers of the Muslim. Very potent night, so they don't play with it. All right. So this is just for the Quran. It's a code of life for the Muslims. There's so many things that can be said. We're not talking about the compilation of the Quran. We're not talking about the nature of the Quran. We just want to understand what the Quran is. So by the time we're aligning this with the effect that it has on the Muslim, then you need to understand why that effect is there. So moving on from there, let's quickly talk about the Hadith. Now you might be wondering, why are we talking about the Quran and the Hadith? The reason is because the Quran is a primary revelation, just as we have seen. However, there are some certain things that, are not found in the Quran. Now, immediately I say this, if a Quran only Muslim is watching what I'm saying right now, what do I mean by Quran only Muslim? So there are different categories of Muslims, okay? There are some Muslims that actually believe in the Quran and they believe in the Hadith. Now, these Muslims are known as the Sunni Muslims, okay? They derive from their name from the word Sunnah, which is actually the way, the life, okay, of the Prophet. Okay, so the Sunnah of the Prophet has been compiled into a particular book. The deeds, the sayings, the actions of the Prophet of Islam have been compiled into a book known as what you have there, the Hadith. All right, so they believe that there are some certain things that may not expressly be stated in the Quran, whereas the Prophet of Islam had actually talked about them in the Hadith. So therefore, the Muslims go by the Quran, the Sunni Muslims right now, they go by the Quran and the Hadith. So the Quran is not the only authority that they hold to. Though is a primary authority, but it's not the only authority that they hold to. So they go by the Quran and then they also support it through the Hadith. Again, if a Quran only Muslim is watching me right now, he would say that no, what I'm saying is actually not true. Why? Because according to him, he believes that the Quran alone is what Allah has given to the Muslims, that the Hadith is a man-made work, that the Hadith is something that is additional, it is bid'ah, it's an innovation, it should therefore not be accepted. However, because the vast majority of the Muslims that we have in the world today are Sunni Muslims, so this explanation comes in handy. So what is the Hadith? All right. So the hadith is actually, in the Arabic, it actually means the word speech or report or narrative. All right. Now, in the Islamic context, it's referring to the narrations relating to what Muhammad, that's the Prophet of Islam, actually said, did, approve, or even disapprove of. And that is the reason why you'll be reading different stories in the hadith, how Muhammad actually deal with a particular issue, what they said about it, and that forms something that the Muslims are holding on today. Oh, if the Prophet is doing it like this, then it's giving us a guidance on how we can actually do, this particular thing. All right. So moving further, a hadith narration is comprising of two things. The first one is what is known as the mathin, okay, or the matin. The matin is actually the text of the hadith itself, all right? That is the content. So for instance, if you're reading an hadith narration and it says that Abu Hurairah reported that the Prophet said that I'll be commanded to fight the people until they confess La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Now that context, okay, which is the content of what the hadith is talking about, is the matin. That is the text, okay? Of course, we're not talking about, hadith science right here, but I just wanted to bring this up because it's also very important. And then the next component of the hadith is what is known as the isnad. The isnad is the chain of narration. So when you're reading an hadith narration, you hear something like, of course, this is just an example. So Korede had it from Deji Yusufu. Deji Yusufu had it from Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah had it from the Prophet. So when you look at that chain of this person hearing it from the other person, this is known as the chain of narration. And the chain of narration is actually a whole discussion, a whole new discussion, a different discussion entirely. Why? Because when you're talking about the chain of narration, it actually affects the matin. If the chain of narration, according to the hadith scholar, is not very strong, then that hadith to be affected, especially if they feel that one of the person who is mentioned in that chain of narration is a weak person. When we say weak person, maybe the person is known to be a liar, or maybe has reported some certain things that is not true, they will say that that particular narration has a problem. Again, we're not talking about hadith science, but it's very important for us to have this basic foundation to where we're actually going to. So moving on from here now, why do we look at this? The reason is because these components, that is the Quran and the hadith, is actually the foundation, the motivation for the things that you're seeing some of the Muslims doing in the world today, especially when we're talking about jihad. So the Muslims are not doing these things because they want to do it. There's a source. There is a reason why they are doing it. And some of them take seriously, okay, the Quran and the Hadith. Some of the things we're going to be reading today, very short, well, it's not going to be too long. Some of the things we're going to be reading today are things that some Muslims are not familiar with. Some are familiar with this. The ones that are familiar with this and want to follow it are the ones that will say that, yes, we want to dominate the world. By the way, before I move further, I did mention that we have Quran only Muslim, but you see, that is just a fraction of the division that we have in Islam. Since, Iran is coming into the discussion, we need to understand that largely Iran is a Shia Muslim kind of, entity. What do I mean by that? So I just mentioned the Sunni right now. So the Sunni actually believe in the Quran and they believe in this, Sunnah of the Prophet that is documented in the Hadith, that we have today. Now, the Shia do not actually believe in the Hadith, okay, because they have their own corpus. They have their own, extra, books that is they look up to, or they say they get a sort of guidance there. But most importantly, the Shia actually look up to their leaders, okay? They believe that their imam are the ones that have the spiritual guidance, okay, from Allah to guide them on the right path. Yes, the Quran is there, okay? But then they have a physical figure, all right? They have a physical figure that actually direct their affairs. And that's where you have the Ayatollah Khomeini. I'm talking about the very first one, not this one that was eliminated recently, okay? He's seen as a spiritual head of the Muslim Ummah. I'm talking about now the Shia, not the Sunni. Now, somebody might be asking, so what is the difference between the Shia and the Muslim? It's a long history, all right? I'm not going to get into that discussion, but for the sake of clarity, so when Muhammad actually died, okay, just want to say this very briefly so we can take it out of the way. And this will help you to understand the reason why it seems as if some Sunni Islamic countries are not willing to help Iran in this particular matter. Now, I need you to understand that when we're talking about this, these things goes beyond politics. Okay, it is deeply a religious issue. I'm telling you, it's deeply religious. There's a bit of politics right there, but what you also need to understand is that Islam is also political in nature. Islam is not just religious, Islam is also political in nature. So when Muhammad died, there was actually a discussion who is actually going to take on from Muhammad, because Muhammad did not have a clear-cut, direction on who is actually going to take up from him. So because of that, there was a sort of, a discussion going here and there. Now, there are some certain persons that feel that Abu Bakr should be the one to take care from Muhammad or take off from Muhammad, because they feel that his experience is older, he's been with Muhammad for some certain, time. And I mean, this guy is the one that should be taking the affairs of the Ummah after Muhammad left the scene. Well, there are some certain persons that believe that no, it should have been Ali, because Ali is actually very close to Muhammad. All right, I mean, we're talking about almost like a blood connection right now. Okay, so is that say, well, we cannot actually allow Abu Bakr to be the one to take this mantle of leadership. We should actually allow Ali, because Ali is very much closer to the Prophet of Islam. All right, so that back and forth was there, but eventually Abu Bakr was the one that took the lead. All right. So Ali at that point in time was not too happy, according to some Islamic narration. And there's some persons who are supporting Ali who are not happy with what actually happened. So after that, Abu Bakr take on. Then before you know it, after Abu Bakr died, then Umar actually take on. Now, before Umar actually came into the scene, of course, according to Islamic narrative, we're told that, well, Ali was expecting to be the next caliph at that point in time. But again, the caliphate did not go to him, or the mantle did not fall on him. So Umar actually take on the mantle of leadership, and then Umar eventually passed on. So he was expecting that after Umar is going to come up again, but eventually it did not come up. Uthman, the third caliph, was the one that came up again. At that point in time, there was already some, boiling in the background. All right. And that affected some of the activities of some of these caliphs, because the people who were actually part of Ali, or the party of Ali, which is the meaning of the word Shia Islam, okay, Shia Ali, it means that they are actually the one who are the party of Ali, the supporter of Ali. All right, so they were like, what is going on right here? It's like this man has been denied what is supposed to be his right. Okay, so but eventually, well, Uthman also died. He was eventually, in fact, killed. But then Ali came on. Now, when Ali came on, there were some political issues in the background. There are some certain persons that believed that it was the people who loved Ali that assassinated Uthman, and they are calling on Ali to, begin to look for those people and kill them. Ali is not willing to do that. He's not ready to do that. And before you know it, another civil war broke. Okay, this is a long history. I won't be able to talk about all of these things. I'm just trying to give you the background. So as a result of that, okay, the wife of Muhammad, Aisha, actually launched, an attack against Ali, but of course, Ali conquered. Accused the two men that actually inspired Aisha, sent Aisha back home. And then after that, we have another person also who launched an attack, okay, against Ali, and then this actually led to another civil war. But eventually, just to cut the long story short, because I don't want to get into much details about this, to cut the long story short, eventually Ali himself was killed. All right. Now, those who are part of Ali, or the party of Ali, felt that this is an injustice that was done to Ali. And of course, Ali has two sons, Hassan and Hussein. These were supposed to be the one to take the mantle of leadership from Ali, but eventually they were also assassinated. So at that point in time, there was a divide between, excuse me, the party that loved, the other caliphs, and the party that loved Ali. So that was the split that causes what you know as the Great Schism in history. Okay, so we have the Shia on one part, and then we have the other Muslim on the other part. And even till today, you see some Shia scholars saying that the Sunnis are not, they are not Muslims. They say all sorts of things. There are some certain things I can't even say, okay, on air right now. Of course, it's there in the, in the history of this two great fractions. But then it is not something that is palatable for me to say. If you hear some certain things that they say about themselves, you wouldn't actually believe. So that's the reason why you discovered that there are some Sunni Muslims as we speak right now. They are in support of the eradication, okay, of the imams that we have right there in Iran, because they believe that this imam are actually not just a thorn in the flesh, but they've already deviated from the religion. All right. And there are some party of Shia, I mean the Shia Muslims, who believe that they are the one on the right path, and then the Sunnis are not on the right path. Whatever they are saying is a sort of propaganda. In fact, they believe that there are some Sunnis who have sided with maybe Israel and US, and they are seen as an enemy of Allah as well. So this is a sort of brief history. I'm not going to get into all of that because that's what we're talking about, but at least this background should give us an idea of the reason why there seems to be an enmity between the Shia and the Sunni. So let's take a look at a couple of verses in the Quran. I think I've gone beyond the time that I'm supposed to present this, but I'm just going to quickly rush this up. So if you take a look at the Quran right here, Quran chapter 2 verse 256. Now, this is one of the verses of the Quran that the Muslims will bring to the fore when they are talking about the issue of jihad. Okay, they will tell you that, see, if you see Muslims saying that they become radicalized because they are trying to stay true to the Quran and the Hadith, it is because they are not being truthful to themselves. Why? Because of a verse like this. Quran chapter 2 verse 256 says, let there be no compulsion in religion. La ikra fi din. There should be no compulsion in religion. All right. For the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So whoever renounces false gods and believe in Allah as certainly grabs the firmest unfailing handhold, and Allah is all hearing, all knowing. So what are the Muslims going to say concerning this verse of the Quran? They will say that, see, if you are going to be true to the Quran, if you want to take the Quran seriously, it therefore means that you will not be violent to other people. You're not going to kill anybody. You're not going to become an extremist, all right? Because the Quran is saying that let there be no compulsion in religion. Don't worry. Go and practice your religion. Let me practice my religion. But this is not the only verse that they appeal to. A couple of verses, I'm just bringing two for instance. So they will quote Quran chapter 5 verse 32, which says that is why we ordain for the children of Israel that whoever take a life, I've seen Muslims quote this verse a lot, when they see certain persons who represent or who claim to be a Muslim killing another person in the name of Allah, they will say, hey, this person is not actually representing Islam, okay? Here's the reason why, because of this verse of the Quran. And that is why we ordain for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life, unless as a punishment for murder or mischief in the land, it will be as if he had killed all of humanity. I've seen some presidents, especially president of the United States, of course, not Trump, but I've seen some, maybe, I think I've seen Obama use this and some other, president like that, okay? And they will say something like this. I mean, this is what the Quran is saying, okay? So moving on from there, it will be as if he has saved. Now, he moved on to say that it will be as if he's killed all of humanity. Whoever saves a life, it will be as if they saved all of humanity. Although a messenger already came to them with clear proofs, many of them still transgress afterward through the land. So what they're saying is that, see, if you're going to be taking the Quran seriously, you cannot be violent. You cannot be killing people in the name of Allah. You cannot, be doing all of these things. This thing is actually against, what the Quran is saying. But you see, what a lot of Muslims who are actually probably watching me right now do not know is that these verses, if you check their context, some of these verses have been abrogated. For instance, Quran chapter 2 verse 256, according to some commentaries of the Quran, it has been said that this verse has been abrogated. I'm going to be quoting one of the verses that are actually abrogated, this verse, okay? And then if you take a look at Quran chapter 5 verse 32, Quran chapter 5 verse 32 is not even talking to the Muslims, okay? He's actually talking to the people of Israel, all right? So if you read the next verse, okay, the next verse is the one that is talking to the Muslims. Now, what does it say? It says that for those who are causing mischief in the land, cut off their hand. I mean, it's meted out the punishment that you're supposed to have for them, okay? But I'm bringing out these verses as an example of some response that you're likely to get from some Muslims who are saying, the Quran does not support this, all right? The Quran does not support this in any way, shape, or form. So whatever you see, maybe Iran is engaged in this particular war and they want to take over the world or whatever, the Quran does not support it. It's supposed to be peaceful, okay? But then let's move to some other verses of the Quran. We're still looking at the same Quran, all right? Remember, we're talking about the Quran and the Hadith as the basic foundation for Islam, especially when we're talking about the Sunni, Islam. I want us to watch this particular video. This is the video of Abu Musab, okay? Abu Musab is actually saying something very important here. It's something that we must have seen. And I want to believe that watching this video would actually open up our eyes to some certain things because, like I said, there's some Muslims that will tell you that, hey, these guys are not representing Islam in any way, shape, or form. But Abu Musab is actually saying that, no, there is indeed jihad in the Quran. It is not just defensive alone. We have the offensive jihad. And you need to be truthful about this one, all right? Here's actually what Abu Musab said in this video.
So the voice is not coming out.
Okay. Okay, so the voice is not coming out.
Yes, sir. I don't know if
I'm
it's
actually
something from my side.
Okay, I'm hearing it from my hand. Maybe we can ask the audience if they can hear the sound from their hand as well, because I'm hearing it from my hand. But we need to find out from the audience if they can. Maybe we can ask them to know if they can hear the sound also.
Okay, audience, if you wouldn't mind, let us know, please, if you can hear. Because I can't hear it at all. All right, so if you could just play, let's see.
Okay, all right. I want to play it again, but I was thinking probably, to get a feedback from the audience before I hit the play button. Do I go ahead to play it again?
Please, just go ahead. Let's see again.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay.
Okay, somebody else responded. It says there's no sound.
Oh, there's no sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where the error may be coming from.
Okay, all right. All right. So it could be that it's actually from my end then. But funny enough, I'm hearing what I'm actually hearing what it's saying. Let me see. Do you want me to correct this very quickly? Because I do love that they hear this. I really want them to hear this. Something I can just within 1 minute is something I can do.
Okay. Maybe you can shut down somebody's saying reshare. So maybe you can shut down this video.
Oh, okay, all right.
And just bring it back again. And then I will allow it.
Okay. Again. Okay, all right. So I already shut that down. And then I'm going to actually reshare again so that we can hear the sound. Okay, all right. So I'm resharing right now. Sharing is coming up, and then the entire screen. So yeah, the entire screen right here. So I've enabled audio. It says share system audio. So this time around, I'm hoping that the sound will come out so that we can hear what it's saying. Okay. So let me test. Okay. I'm just going to put this in full screen. There you go. So I'm going to play it again. Let's see if it does not play, then that means I may just is there an option for me to upload it on this particular broadcast so they can hear
yes,
it?
Because it's not paid, then we can't upload.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let me play right now.
Except you can share from YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Okay, maybe I will consider that.
Come on, bro.
Play.
Where are you living?
Okay, we can hear it now. Okay, we can hear it now.
What is preventing non-Muslims from Islam is either that Allah knows they're so bad, Allah is not going to guide them. They don't deserve guidance, or we Muslims don't have the bravery that the Sahaba did in conveying the truth. So we lie and we cheat and we claim things that are not part of Islam, and guess what? Not all of them are dumb. They can tell when we lie. They can tell when someone sits behind it that says, Islam is peace. Islam is about peace. There's no jihad. The only jihad is the jihad of the soul. You fight against your struggle, your shaitan, khalas. That's where jihad ends. Every ayah you read in the book of Allah, you have misunderstood it. Ya Shaykh, haram alayk ya Shaykh. Why are you afraid to tell the people the truth? Don't you think Allah gave him a brain? Don't you think this kafir is going to open the Quran, read Surah Al-Anfal, and he's going to come across these ayat, the military ayat, which you've been trying to hide? Then what are you going to do? Then he's going to say, you guys were lying to me the whole time, and you keep telling me something, and here's your book, here's your Quran. Oh no, but no. See, you don't understand. This ayah was actually abrogated by the other ayah, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينُ. So now they twist things around. If that was in the beginning, I mean, ajib ya akhi. So you keep playing with the deen of Allah and changing and altering and sugarcoating to please a bunch of people, and at the end of the day, the da'wah is lost in the process.
All right, so basically you can see what Abu Musab is actually saying right there. So Abu Musab is saying that, hey, don't sugarcoat this stuff, all right? They can actually read the Quran. They can open up the Quran too. They can see what is going on right there. And he's saying there that, see, don't tell people that it's just the jihad of the soul, all right? Because we have verses in the Quran that are military jihad, okay? Military jihad verses, and these verses are still there till today. So don't sugarcoat it. Don't tell people that these things are not there, because they're going to open up the Quran today, and thankfully enough, we have the Quran in the English language. We can open it up right now. We can read what is there, and we see that these verses are actually right there in the Quran. Now, there's another video I'm supposed to play, but I'm not going to play that video because of our time. But again, it's the video of this particular sheikh in the UK. And he's talking about domination. Okay, maybe what I'm going to do is just play about a glimpse, sorry, not a glimpse, about a minute or two from it. I think it's about 4 minutes, just about 2 minutes from it, then we skip it off. But again, the essence of saying this is that when the Muslims take the Quran, when a Muslim is taking the Quran seriously, and he wants to take the hadith seriously, the tendency for him to go violent is actually there. Because these verses are there, all right? And I know some people are going to be saying, hey, context, Korede, you're taking these verses out of content. Don't worry. I'm going to quote hadith narration that actually talks about some of these verses I'm going to be talking about. And you're going to be seeing that this is not out of context in any way, shape, or form. But let's hear what this, this sheikh actually says right here.
Equality to all of its members. Is there such a thing in Islam? Is there equality of faith? If we look to one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the authority of Abu Huraira, Sahih Muslim. So no Sunni Muslim can really argue against Sahih Muslim or Sahih Bukhari. Rasulullah said, don't greet the Jews and the Christians before they greet you, and when you meet any of them on the roads, force them to go on the narrow side of it. And Imam Malik, he said the same thing as well. In fact, Umar ibn Khattab, who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that if there was to be another Nabi after me, it would be Umar ibn Khattab in his own charter, not charter of United Nations, in his charter with the people of Sham, with those Christians of Sham, in his charter was Kafir and Muslim, they're not allowed to wear the same clothes as one another. If the Muslim, he comes out on the day of Eid and he sees Kafir with nice clothes, the Kafir has to take his clothes off and give it to the Muslims. The Kafir, when he walks inside the street, he has to wear a red belt around his neck, and he has to have his forehead shaved, and he has to wear two shoes which are different from one another.
All right, so the reason why I'm stopping it right there is because of time. But you can hear what this man is saying. He's referencing the hadith right there. And he's talking about the things that might be sounding strange to a lot of people who are even non-Muslims and Muslims alike. And they are like, where is this getting these things from? They're actually from your Quran. Because of time, let's quickly take a look at the verses of the Quran. Quran chapter 9, verse 29. One of the verses that I like to talk about very briefly before we open up to questions. Fight against those who do not believe in Allah. This is the Ilali Khan translation of the Quran. Fight against those who do not believe in Allah. That's number one. Number two, nor in the last day. By the way, if he says fight against those who do not believe in Allah, Christians and Jews actually fall into the category, because the God of the Jews and the God of the Christian is not the same God of the Muslims. All right, the Christians don't believe in Allah. All right, yeah. The reason is because if you check Quran chapter 9 verse 30, the next verse of the Quran, okay, 30 and then 31, you're going to discover right there that Allah is saying that woe to those who say that he has a son. In fact, it says the Jews actually say that Israel is son of Allah. The Christian says that Jesus is son of Allah. Woe to them for what their mouth is saying. May Allah kill them. May Allah destroy them. Of course, we are not worshiping the same God, okay? And then also, the next one is not in the last day. Okay, well, maybe we believe in the last day, but we're in option number one. Now, forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and his messenger. Of course, there are some certain things that Islam forbids that Christianity does not forbid, so we're still there. Other non-Muslims are still there, and the Jews are actually there as well. And those who acknowledge not the religion of truth, if you don't acknowledge Islam as the religion of truth, then you are liable. In fact, it says amongst the people of the scripture, who are they? The Quran is mentioning specifically the Jews and Christians. until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Now, how can you read a verse like this as a devoted Muslim and you're not going to be inspired? You're not going to be moved to want to carry out this verse of the Quran. Because every now and then, the Muslims, the non-Muslims, the Jews and the Christians and every other non-Muslims are actually going against what the Quran is saying right there. They don't believe in Allah. They don't believe in forbidding what Muhammad has actually forbidden. They don't believe in Islam as the true religion. And that is why right now in the UK, okay, the Muslims in the UK actually want UK to be a Muslim nation. And it's not just the Muslims in UK alone. Once the Muslims are already having a sizable number. Now, I need to be careful here because I don't want us to see all the Muslims the same way. I'm saying that once a Muslim begin to take the Quran seriously and is looking at the verse like this, the verse of the sword, okay, in Surah Tawbah, Quran 9, if he's seeing a verse like this, the verse of the sword, he wants to act. He wants to, because if he loves Muhammad so much, he wants to act this out, okay? Now, take a look at the hadith narrations that follow this, verse of the Quran. By the way, if you want to fact check what I'm trying to say, you can go to a website called QuranX.com. Now, what that does for you is that, because if you don't have hadith, you don't have access to hadith narration, if you go to QuranX.com, you can actually see the Quran right there, and you can see the hadith narration that aligns to the Quran. Okay, so here's what we see. Read in Sahih Bukhari, volume 1, book 2, hadith number 24. It says, narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's messenger said, I have been ordered. Please listen to this very carefully. This is coming from the leader of the Muslims, the one that the Muslims actually hold in high esteem, the one that actually received the copy of the Quran, the one that the Muslims will say is the messenger of Allah. He says that I've been ordered by Allah to fight against the people until they testify that no one has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. In Arabic, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and offer the prayer, that's salat, perfectly, and give the obligatory charity. So if they perform that, then they save their lives and their property from me, okay, except for Islamic laws, and then their reckoning account will be done by Allah. This is a statement coming from the Prophet of Islam. How can you be a Muslim who want to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet? You want to be a Sunni Muslim. You want to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet, and you see the Prophet saying this, and you say you don't want to act. No wonder Abu Bakr Shekau was saying in one of the videos, he said that he has declared a jihad, and the jihad is against the Christian. Why? Because of things like this verse of the Quran, and also the hadith narration. Because of time, we need to close it off right from here so that we can take, maybe questions and interrogation from Brother DG Yusufu. So this is the Tafsir of Al-Jalalain. I have a copy of Al-Jalalain right here. The Tafsir of Al-Jalalain on Quran chapter 9 verse 29. It says, fight those who do not believe in God, nor in the last days, for otherwise they would have believed in the prophets, and would do not forbid what God and his prophet are forbidding, such as wine. Can you imagine that? Such as wine. Nor do they practice the religion of truth. And the religion of truth, the firm one, the one that abrogates other religion, namely what? The religion of Islam. The Muslims actually believe that Islam has abrogated Judaism and Christianity. Therefore, there is no need for Judaism and Christianity on the surface of the earth again. Why? Because these two religions have been abrogated. From among those who mean, that is from, explain the previous Aladina, those who have been given the scripture. Who are the ones who have been given the scripture? Namely, the Jews and the Christians. Okay, until they pay the jizya, okay, the jizya tribute, the annual tax imposed, okay, imposed on them readily. Ayadin is circumstantial qualifier, meaning compliantly or by their own hands, not delegating it to others to pay, being subdued, meaning that they are not going to be telling others to pay for that. They are the one that will pay it. And of course, it says being subdued, being made submissive and compliant to the authority of Islam. How can you read this as a Muslim who want to follow through the Quran, and you want to obey the commands or the lifestyle of the Prophet of Islam, and you're not going to be saying that you want to fight against the unbeliever? Okay, there are many more verses of the Quran, but I'm sorry, I'm supposed to do this for 25 minutes. I think I've gone overboard. Thank you, Brad Deji. I'm just going to put it let me just stop right here. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much,
Korede.
I just wanted to,
sometimes we plan this thing, we say 15 minutes.
We say 15 minutes. If the Spirit led
If
you
the
this
Spirit
way,
led you this
we
way,
cannot,
we cannot
use the word
use the
abrogate.
word
We can't stop
abrogate.
it.
We can't stop
Thank
it.
you so much.
Thank you so
First
much.
thing I want to say is
First
that
thing I
we
want
had
to
a
say is that we
comment
had a comment
from
Evangelist
Evangelist Isan.
Isan.
Evangelist,
Evangelist,
if you're hearing us,
if you're hearing us,
if you're still on the channel, I want to
I want
invite
to
you
invite you
to this.
to this.
You can
You
join
can join
via audio alone.
audio alone.
If you don't have a
You don't
good
have a
this thing.
good this
Our
thing.
brother
Our
Korede,
brother
you can
Korede,
send
you
the
can
links to
send
him.
the
So
links
just
to him.
reply
So just
the
reply
message
the message
if you want to
if you want to
really appreciate
really
that.
appreciate that.
The second thing that I wanted to respond to is that
I want to give
a little
a
story.
little story
For that show,
our
our guest has
our
spoken
guest has
said
spoken
so
has said
much,
so much,
but I want to
but
bring
I
it
want
down
to
a
bring
little
it down a
bit
little
and help
bit
us
and
to
help us
appreciate
to
some
appreciate
things
some
that
things
we
that
have,
we have,
some of the challenges
some
that
of the
we
challenges
have,
that we have,
especially with
especially.
Islam. So I think we have a response from the evangelist. Let me see what he said.
Yeah, I've just sent him a link right now.
Yes. So, Brad Korede. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
the echo has gone. The echo has gone.
Okay.
Evangelist, please, if you would like to join the broadcast, even if it's via, this thing, we would appreciate it. Have you sent the link to him, sir?
Oh yeah, I just sent the link to him right now.
All right.
On
Okay.
WhatsApp.
So
Yeah.
now we have a channel on YouTube called Text and Publishing History. On that channel, we have done history. We publish histories of Nigerian personalities. We have done Obafemi Awolowo. We have done Victor Banjo, and recently we published Amadou Bello. For me to be able to do Amadou Bello, I read this book. This book
Oh wow.
I read it in my undergraduate years. It was written by a man called John Pardon. Pardon was a historian with the Amadou Bello University. He published the book in 1986. It was a story of Amadou Bello. Now, Amadou Bello's challenge was, Amadou Bello believed in Western education. All right, no problem. Evangelist said next time. Amadou Bello believed in Western education, and he wanted the North to imbibe Western education. That's why that university was named after him. Before his death, it was called the University of Northern Nigeria. So he spread it. The reason was because at the age of 12 or 11 or 10, he was sent to a primary school. He gained Western education, and then he went on to a secondary school, and that was all the education he had. He went on to become the Sardana of Sokoto, and then eventually the Premier of the North. But he understood that you could reconcile Western education with the Quranic learning, okay, and then make Northern Nigeria better. All right. But as he was campaigning that, pushing that campaign, and a number of Northerners were imbibing that learning, something else was happening in the North. Maiduguri became the capital of Quranic learning. So what usually happens is that Northerners will give birth to a child, and then the next thing is that they send that child, a boy, to Maiduguri. He goes to live with an imam, okay, and he learns the Quran, okay. Whatever else he does, I'm not sure. But before we knew it, by the late 70s, 1970s, Maiduguri became a hotbed for Islamic militancy. And then we had Metesine, which the Nigerian military, when we still had military, went and crushed and they put it down. And then the next in 2009, we had Boko Haram. Okay. Right. And then Boko Haram has metamorphosed now to ISWAP, and they are giving our military a lot of problems. Now, the question that was on my mind is, what are these people reading in their Quran that is making them militant? Okay. And that's what our brother has answered. Basically, if you follow what the Quran is teaching, if you are going to be a real and true Muslim, you can't have Christianity, you can't have Judaism. Okay. In fact, Christians can still be allowed in the Muslim world, but Israel, you cannot. You can't. So what has happened presently in our world, and Brother Korede can disagree with me, but what has happened is simply this: 1945-48, United Nations decided to allow the Jews to come and plant their nation in the Middle East, and the Jews come, they establish their country, and they are trying to build a nation in the Middle East, and all their Muslim neighbors, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, whatnot, all of them decided and said the Jews are not going to have a country here. Okay, I can't remember which year was that. It might have been 48 or 49. They all came together against Israel in a war, and Israel was totally unprepared for that war, but they won. They won all those countries. Eventually, there has been a metamorphosis of Israel and their their Muslim neighbors, so much so that because Israel has the backing of the United States and many Middle Eastern nations are dependent on the United States for economic powers, they have had to reconcile with Israel. Okay, they have had to agree to an extent with Israel. However, there's one country that has not, and that country is Iran. Before 1979, before the Iranian Revolution, okay, before the Ayatollah came, okay, Israel and Iran had a good working relationship. Okay, but the moment the Islamic Revolution occurred in Iran, okay, and the Ayatollah came, especially with their shared bent of Islam, there was going to be no reconciliation with Israel. Okay. And so while the other Muslim neighbors around Iran, around reconciling with Israel and working with them, the Iran, that's the Islamic Republic of Iran, that's their leaders, decided that there was no way they're going to work with Israel. And so they began to sponsor terrorist groups around Israel. So you have the Houthis in Yemen, you have Hezbollah in Lebanon. These are all countries that share boundaries with this, and then you have Hamas in Gaza. All these three groups are not even theologically in line with Shia Islam. Many of them are Shiites. Okay, they are Sunnis. But they find that, look, there's a greater enemy, and that greater enemy is. So what is happening presently in Iran is a situation where the Muslims, or what they call it, the Shias, yes, the Shiite Muslims are sponsoring terrorists against Israel. Now, Israel has managed it for a long time. They've been able to keep militant Islam at bay for a long time. What broke the camel's back was the 7th of October, 2023, when the Gazans, Hamas came in through the Israeli borders, okay, and killed 1,200 Israelis, okay, massacred them, all kinds of things. At the same time, Hezbollah began to shoot rockets from this. In fact, it was what I think the plan really was that the Hamas were supposed to come in through the south, Hezbollah was supposed to come in through the north, the Houthis, and they were all supposed to converge on Israel at the same time. But the Hamas were too excited, and they went ahead. Okay, and then eventually that happened. So many Israelis were killed, and Israel has always maintained, they said there's not going to be a repeat of 1945 or the 1944 Holocaust. It's never again. Okay, and they launched out. They've been able to decimate Hamas. They've been able to deal with Hezbollah, and then they continue to insist that the head of the snake is Iran. They continue to insist. They said the main people sponsoring this thing is Iran, and Iran has to be dealt with. America, of course, didn't want to destabilize the what they call it, the Middle East, and they wouldn't engage it until January, when the Iranian people themselves said, enough of this Islamic rule. We don't want it. Okay. And some of us that have been listening to a lot of commentaries coming from Iranians, especially Iranians in the diaspora, have been saying that there's a difference between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Iranian people. Majority of the Iranian people don't want Islamic dominance anymore. So the war right now has started. The first day of the war, the Ayatollah was eliminated. Okay. And then the whole focus now is to remove what Iranians call a terrorist organization that is ruling their country. Because the moment that Islamic this thing is taken away, you're going to now have a situation where the Iranian people can govern themselves and they will very likely be at peace with Israel. Okay, so the question that I wanted, but Korede, which he has answered, is simply this: the Quran essentially teaches that Muslims should be at variance, should be at war with Christians and Jews. In fact, even at more at variance with Jews. Okay, there can be peace amongst them. So the question that I want to put back now to Korede is simply this. Sir, if you don't mind to answering this question, is there any such thing as a moderate Muslim?
That's right there is a $1 million question. So the term has been used, moderate Muslim, and the ideology behind that term is that we have the fundamentalists, the ones who seems to go to the extreme. The fundamentalists are the ones that are said to go to the extreme. But looking at what we have seen from the Quran and the Hadith narration that we have, it seems that the fundamentalists are not going to the extreme. According to what we see in the Quran and the Hadith, it seems that they are actually following the precept of the Quran and the Hadith. So they are doing just fine based on what we have in the Quran and the Hadith. Now, if that is the definition of who a Muslim is, that is the ones who actually follow the Quran and the Hadith, then we can't say that there is anything like a moderate Muslim, because if you are going to be moderate, all right, it gives a sense that there are some certain things that you are not doing. Okay, you are not going to the extreme. All right, and if you are going to the extreme, you are actually looking at what the books is saying, the Quran and the Hadith, and you say, hey, I want to actually do this. Now, let me quickly do a sort of comparison to make this more understandable. As an extremist is somebody in the fundamentalist actually is somebody who believes what the religion says. Let's say he's actually holding to a religion. He believes what the religion says and he wants to actually act out the religion. All right, that is who an extremist is supposed to be. Okay, but if we're taking a look at the Christian faith, who is an extremist according to the Christian faith? Somebody who wants to be like Jesus. He want to follow the ordinances of Jesus. He want to follow the commands of Jesus. And that person, if he follows the commands of Jesus, is not going to go about doing this thing that we see is being done in Islam. All right, because Jesus, the foundation of everything that Jesus actually did is based on love. He actually came from heaven to the earth because he loved us. All right, it does not want us to die in our sin. In fact, John chapter 3 verse 16 actually captures that. So this is actually foundational. All right, the basis of what Jesus is doing, and by extension what the Christians are actually doing today, is based on love. But if you're taking a look at the Quran and the Hadith, and a Muslim wants to follow it en toto, that is, he wants to believe what they're saying, he wants to follow the example of the Prophet of Islam, then it therefore means that he's no longer, he's just a Muslim, all right? He's a Muslim. Because if you call him a moderate Muslim, it means you are trying to lessen some certain things. You're trying to draw him back. Oh, don't go to the edge, all right? Just stay here. But if you are telling him not to go to the edge, it therefore means that you're not allowing him to express his full love and support for the Prophet. And if you are doing that, you are not allowing him to express himself, and you are not a Muslim. All right. In fact, there's a verse in the Quran. I can't remember the verse of the Quran right now. What it says is that you are not a Muslim. That is Allah talking to the Muslims right now. It says you are not a Muslim except when you love Muhammad more than yourself and you see him as a leader in every aspect of your life. So if Muhammad is supposed to be the role model of the Muslim, and Muhammad is saying that I have been commanded to fight everyone, okay, I've been commanded to fight people until they confess La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. If that is what the Prophet is saying, and if a Muslim wants to follow that path, and you're saying that no, he has to be a moderate Muslim, he doesn't need to go to that extreme, or he does not need to go to that path, then what it means is that you don't want him to be a Muslim. So in order to answer this question, I would say that there is no such thing as a moderate Muslim. It is either you are a Muslim or you are not. It's just like saying that there's a moderate Christian. There's nothing like that. It is either you are a Christian or you are not. Now, the tendency, especially for Islam, is that if you are going to be a Muslim, according to the Quran and the Hadith, then there's going to be a problem, because you're going to want to carry out what the Prophet is saying. And this is the reason why, as I wrap up this particular question, this is the reason why scholars like Shabihali is calling the Muslim back to begin to revise the hadith narration that we find right there in the book. Is saying that there are some certain things that have been attributed to the Prophet which are not in line with the character of the Prophet, okay? And that's why Shabi Ali has taken so much time, okay, to begin to explain that there are some certain things that we have, especially this extreme, okay, let's put it in quote, this extreme hadith that seems to inspire people to engage in this particular art. He's saying that, no, let's begin to revise them because it does not actually represent, the action of the Prophet. Thank you for
I think Shabi Ali is probably even tempering more to Quran only. Right?
Yeah,
right.
you could actually say that. It says he believes in the hadith, but yes, he's calling people to actually look more into the Quran because there seems to be a lot of issue or problem with the hadith. Yeah.
All right. Now, one of the challenges that we have had, especially in modern times in Nigeria, has to do with violence in northern Nigeria. Okay, and it appears that northern Nigerian Muslims have reconciled themselves to the violence going on. This is what I mean. You have things happen in Iran. You have things happen to Muslims in other parts of the world. Northern Nigerian Muslims will come and demonstrate. They will say, hey, they don't want it, they want that. But if, for example, just a week ago or less than a week ago, there was this bomb in front of the teaching hospital in Maiduguri, and about 23 people were killed, and there was no protest. So my question now is this: why do Muslims in the north particularly tend to demonstrate about violence against their brethren in Iran and all, but things going on in the north, they say nothing? Why is that?
Now, it's a mystery to a lot of people because they see this as hypocrisy. Why would you engage in something like that? Like something is going on internationally. We're having a reflection of that in Nigeria. And then we see something happening in our own nation, Nigeria, and you seem not to be speaking about it. In fact, I've had to confront some of my Muslim friends online, and I'm asking them the same question that you're asking me right now. In fact, let me take us back to the memory lane. Remember when the Danish cartoon was published in Denmark? Okay, the Muhammad cartoon. When it was published in Denmark, a lot of Christians lost their life in Maiduguri, in Borno. I mean, this is something that usually happens. When something happens in one part of the world, the Christians in Nigeria are the one that will bear the brunt, okay? But then the question still remains: why is it that the Muslims are more sympathetic to other Muslims out there than what we have in Nigeria? The first response to that is the concept of Ummah. That's the first thing. So the Muslims actually believe in the concept of Ummah, that wherever you may be, if you're a Muslim, be it in Nigeria, be it in Saudi Arabia, be it in Germany, wherever you are, there is a sort of solidarity. So whatever is happening to a Muslim in one nation is actually happening to the Muslim in the nation that thing is not happening to. So it's not like saying that if it happens to one, it happens to all. So that is the concept of solidarity. However, if that concept is actually standing, and if it is true, we're supposed to have the very same thing here in Nigeria. For instance, remember what happened in Kwara State, Woro community. When that incident happened, we were told that this group, okay, came to them. In fact, they already told them, we're coming to your community to actually preach, okay? Now, the people they are coming to already knew that these guys seems to be extremists. We don't want their version of Islam, okay? Because they rejected their version of Islam, these guys unleashed the dragon on them. A lot of people were killed. Places were actually burnt down. Now, I did not see a protest to that from the Muslims. In fact, I rarely see Islamic scholars, okay, speaking against that. Maybe if they are saying it, maybe one or two people or one or two persons, but we're not seeing it in the national dailies. It's not like when Khan is saying that this genocide is too much. We want to stop. We're not hearing these voices, okay? But this is not the first time. Again, I made a post about I think 2 weeks ago. This same thing. I said that, see, when the Muslims are actually being attacked in other places, we see you showing a sort of solidarity. But here in Nigeria, we see the same thing happening here, and you're not saying anything. What is actually going on? Some of them come to my comment section and say that, well, maybe you have not seen those people talking about it. How can it be that we are not seeing them talking about it? We are not seeing it in national dailies. We are not even seeing it online. Well, the reason to that is because they feel that some of the Muslims that were killed, I'm talking about some of these people right now, they feel that some of the Muslims that were killed are not Muslims. Let me explain what I mean. Sometimes you see Boko Haram killing Christians. In fact, they kill Christians for the most part, but sometimes they kill the Muslims also. And the people are saying that some Muslims are actually advocating and saying that, hey, Boko Haram cannot be Muslim. Here's the reason why. Because a Muslim would not want to kill another fellow Muslim. That's what they are saying. That's their argument. But you see, the truth of the matter is that the Boko Haram already made it clear. What they are saying is that, see, we are coming after Muslims that would not want to submit to our ideology, and we know that our ideology is actually rooted in the Quran and in the Hadith. So if you are not going to submit to that, it therefore means that you're already a mushrikun, you're a polytheist, you're not a believer any longer. Because of that, your blood is actually permitted for us to shed.
Wow.
And that's exactly what some Muslims are. That's why they're not speaking up, because they feel that some certain Muslims are compromised. If they are compromised, then we don't actually need to talk about that, because they're already part of those people who are causing the problem in the first place. So I think that this is the case of hypocrisy. I'm appealing to the Muslims right there. If you feel that you're a peaceful Muslim, if you feel that you don't actually like what is going on in Nigeria, especially all of these things that we're talking about, then we need your leaders to speak up. We need your leaders to condemn the activities of these people. But you see, how can they condemn the activities of these people when these people are actually quoting the Quran and their deed to support the activities? So I think it's a wake-up call for the ones that actually call themselves the peaceful Muslims in Nigeria.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Brother Korede. We have overshot our time. You're going to come back to give a closing statement. Basically, what is your summary message, especially to our Muslim brothers? But we have spoken a lot, and I mean, I looked at the chat and I saw that quite a number of Muslims have left comments. So it's a dialogue, and I'm opening this channel to any Muslim that might want to give a feedback, or me even want to challenge our brother. It was always nice to have Brother Korede back. So I just sent a message to him and said, Brother Korede, somebody is challenging you, please come back and give a discussion. There's a comment here. I just want to look it up. So let me just share it. Hope it's not in other Islamic states or nations, no one shows solidarity to Nigerian Muslims. Will it not be considered foolish for them to be attacking for those who doesn't mind them when it happens in Nigeria? Did you get questions, sir?
Yeah, I do. And that's exactly what we just said right now. That for the most part, the Muslims in Nigeria seem to be sympathetic to what is going on out there in other nations. But you are not saying the same, you're not showing the same thing for the Muslims here in Nigeria. Okay.
Nigeria. Yeah.
I mean, it's expected. Yoruba will say that Latin. So if you're going to show that you love other people, why not start with your own family? We need to see that you love your family, because if you're saying that you love other people and you hate your family, then your love is actually fake. It's not true. And again, it's a challenge for our Muslim brethren to begin to speak up. If truly you value the lives that have been lost in Nigeria, okay, you need to begin to speak up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brother Korede. Another point that I want to raise is that my concern, I mean, my focus of ministry is pastoral, but there's no way you can pastor people without knowing, without being involved in their lives. And one of the leading issues in our country today is Islamic insurgency. I have some friends in Ilorin presently. Some of their parents live in border communities with Niger State and with what's that, Benin Republic. Many of those communities are under siege from Islam. People sleep with their eyes, one eye open. It has become a major issue. So militant Islam has come to our doorsteps. Recently, somebody talked about seeing Fulani headsmen in Ibadan. It's here with us. Okay, it's a problem. So there's no way you can be a pastor without answering and dealing with the issue. The second way I want to look at this issue is this. Islam is encountering a new civilization. And that civilization is something we call the Western civilization. Islam has always, been in the eastern parts, and There's no way, there's no thinking Muslim that would not agree with the fact that the West has gone ahead of them. Okay? Uh, if you are going to be serious and you're not going to use bow and arrow, you have to get a gun. Okay? In fact, Iran is in the news today because Iran has developed, they have worked on their technology. They have developed missiles. They are shooting missiles now to European countries. Okay? And the whole basis of the war is that Iran wants to acquire nuclear weapons. It is true that Pakistan has nuclear weapons, but Pakistan is not saying death to America or death to Israel. It is those countries that are saying death to America and death to Israel that America is taking their threat very seriously, because there was a time they didn't take that threat seriously and they had 9/11. Now they are taking those threats seriously and they are dealing with the matter. So there's a clash of civilization. There's also a clash of ideas. And that clash of ideas is very simple. Western civilization is founded on Christianity, the gospel, the fact that we have liberty, okay, and we have freedom to look at, consider the scriptures, consider the Muslim argument, consider the Christian argument, look at the hadiths, okay, the hadiths, many of them which are trusted hadiths, we're looking at them and we're debating, okay, in the process. You know, I call it a marketplace of ideas. Just like everybody go to the market, some of them bring pomo to the market. You bring your beans, you bring your gari. Everybody goes to the market. You buy whatever you want to buy with your with your money. It's the same thing that is happening in the world today. We have the internet. There's a marketplace of ideas. People are going to ideas and imbibing whatever ideas that pays them. Recently, I saw this guy Asari Dokubo from South. He said he converted to Islam. Why? Because he doesn't believe in a religion that turns the other cheek.
That's right.
That is a marketplace of idea. He doesn't believe. How can somebody hit you and then you turn the other cheek? You can't be a Christian. That's marketplace of ideas. So it's the same thing with Islam. Islam must come to the point where everything is on the table. Okay? Let people decide on what religion they want to choose.
That's right.
And people decide because people have sense. They look at it and say, okay, Christians, if Christians go to school, Christians are kind to people, Christians do this, Christians do that, maybe I will consider Christianity. If you as a Muslim, you want people to become Muslims, you to be kind to people, you to do good, you to commend your religion to other people. If not, perhaps Christianity is going to win the day. But there's a third ideology. Okay, and we don't have the time to look at it. And that ideology is the leftist ideology. The ones that have been against Christians since the 17th and 18th century. Unfortunately, they are the ones supporting Islam today and militant Islam. They are the ones behind CNN, behind MSNBC, and many Western, what do you call it? Media houses.
Yeah, media houses.
And they are the ones that are against the war in Israel today. They're the ones supporting, in a sense, supporting Iran and so on. Unfortunately, they were the ones that teamed up with the Ayatollah in 1978 and 1979. They took over government in Iran, and the moment the Ayatollah came to office, it was the leftists he killed first. He later all of them and took over and turned the country to Islamic. So the whole thing, thank God we have the internet. We have a discussion like this. Let everybody put everything on the table. Okay? Let's put everything on the table. Let people decide on what they want. Why would somebody put a knife on my neck and say I must practice Islam? It's not going to happen. Before our brother Korede came, they said recently, Leah Sharibu has her 4th child in the dungeon of these animals. And they said when she was having her 1st child, the woman was just crying out, Jesus, Jesus. So you can put a Christian anywhere. He will still trust his Jesus. Thank you, Brother Korede. Let's have a closing statement from you, and then we'll be done.
Thank you so much, Brother Yusufu, for actually having me on the show. It's a privilege to be here. I consider it a rare privilege. I am not taking it for granted in any way, shape, or form. I also want to say that for the Christian who are watching right now, this is not the case of I don't care. I don't have anything to do about this. You can actually do something about this. It has come to a point where we as Christians, we need to begin to understand what Islam is all about. We need to begin to know how we can interact with our Muslim friends. Yes, I did mention that not all Muslims are violent, but by the time the Muslims are taking a look at the Quran, they're looking at the Hadith, I want to start taking it seriously. Okay, that is when they get into this particular corner where they want to make sure that they take the word for Allah. And one of the things that we can do as Christians is that when we understand what the Muslims believe, when we understand some of these things, we can engage them with the gospel. All right, because we have something to offer: eternal life. They do not need to die for any God. Jesus had come to die for us. God in human flesh, he's come to die for us. So they need not die for any God. So if we can offer them this gospel of peace and gospel of salvation, some of them might not really want to go to this particular point where they begin to say, hey, I want to make sure that I queue for this particular God so I can actually enjoy myself in paradise, 7 virgins, 70 virgins, whatever number of virgins, wine and all of that. I think that the Christian church needs to rise up. I think that the Christian church needs to begin to take Muslim evangelism seriously. And I think that we need to actually begin to look into how we can engage with the Muslims effectively. For those who actually hate the Muslims because of what is going on around the world, I want to tell you that you need not hate the Muslims, because if you hate them, there is no way you can actually reach out to them. Again, we need to rise up. We need to begin to take evangelism to the Muslims seriously. If you're a pastor, this is not, an option for you, something that you need to take up. Again, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so grateful. God bless you, Pastor DG Yusufu.
Thank you, sir. So this text and publishing religion has come to you by Providence Reformed Baptist Church, Ibadan. We meet at the University of Ibadan. My name is Pastor Deji Yusufu. We've had Brother Korede Olawoyin come to speak with us. I don't know when are you going to be ordained? This brother doesn't fit you anymore. Become the pastor very soon. If not, I will ordain you
right now
unofficially here. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for always being a blessing. I reached out and 1 minute you accepted. We appreciate it. We also want to send out invitations to our Muslim brothers. If we have said something here that you do not agree, we invite you to come and probably say your mind.
Yeah.
I will counter you, and hopefully Brother Korede is available. He would also be available to debate the matter. Not debate directly, but I mean, look at the issues.
Yeah.
We really need to begin to have this dialogue. Evangelist Isang, thank you for being on the watching. Please, the invitation is still open to you. It's one of our leading apologists on the issue of Islam. We all have to take Islam. I mean, since we've not taken the gospel to the north, they are bringing the gospel with the kind of violence that we are seeing. Their own kind of gospel, and we have to counter it. We have nothing else, and I am totally for the kind of military solution that America provides. I was telling one of my assistants, one of my brothers today, that look, what we have learned from Islam is very simple. The gospel must be protected with the sword. If we sit down, we're saying, what has happened in Northern Africa, where hitherto Christian nations were overrun by the sword, is going to happen again. So we are going to have to fight it out. When we have fought it out, and then we'll come back again and preach the gospel. Thank you very much, sir, for being our guest. We're hoping that we can have this broadcast every Sunday evening. Now, we have a comment. Now, let me just quickly take it before I sign out in case somebody has something for us. Yes. Evangelist Isang said something. We are suffering from the neglect of the Exactly. That's it. We're suffering from the neglect of evangelizing the Muslims. We have to reach out to them. And we thank God for those who are doing it, and we must continue to encourage them. Thank you very much, sir. We will be back by God's grace next week with another edition. Mr. Brother Korede, you see, this thing is not sweet again. Pastor Korede, please hang on for me.